Now that we come to the end of this cinematic journey, we can reflect back and finally ask the most important question that's on our minds. Was it really necessary to break up this classic story into 3 movies?
Right here.
Hi, Faceless here, and let's cut through the chase, shall we? The Hobbit, Battle of the Five Armies. This is the third and final installment to the Hobbit trilogy, and let me say, I was slightly apprehensive in going into this film. When I was a child, the only version of The Hobbit I knew was the animated film released back in 1977. Then years later, I eventually read the novel. So given where the last film left off, I kinda knew how much was left. Here's the standard paperback novel of The Hobbit. About this much is where the last film is adapted from. So with that being said, I know how much of the story is left, and by all accounts, it's really not a whole lot. Basically, we are talking about the last 4 chapters of the original novel. So it's safe to assume that they're going to add more content, much like they did in the first and second movie. It raises a couple of questions, like, will the additional content fit? Will it even make sense? With the few additions they added, will it keep us entertained or even invested till the end? And overall, was it justified to break it into 3 parts to begin with? My answer to that is, yeah. When they announced that they were going to adapt The Hobbit to a movie, they told us that it was going to be 2 movies. However, Peter Jackson wanted to tell the whole story and not really leave anything out. He felt, in order for him to tell the story to its full potential and do it right, 3 movies were needed. You can argue that the studios also did it just to squeeze as much money out of us as possible. And there might be some truth to that. Hollywood is a business after all.
That's right, boys! Another cash cow's coming! No. We're not repeating that skit again. Get out. Aww.
But despite all that, I would rather have it done right, and if it took 3 movies to do it, I'm all for it. You're also going to have people argue that the additional scenes weren't needed, and it didn't feel true to the original story, and that it didn't need to be changed at all. But what most people don't know that J.R.R. Tolkien himself made a few changes to The Hobbit, so that way to make a better connection to The Lord of the Rings. Peter Jackson pretty much did the same thing for the film version. And after viewing all the movies together, it's the same story we all grew up with, and it really didn't deviate from the original novel. We could continue arguing on this particular subject some other time. For now, let's just get to the meat of this review. Now, how well does this final film hold? Pretty damn good. Immediately, the film picks off where the last film left off, with Smaug decimating Lake Town. Already, it delivers some fantastic visuals with Smaug's attack, and it really captures a sense of dread and despair that makes you feel for the people of Lake Town. After the attack is over and Smaug is taken down, we go on to the rest of the film's plot. Little spoiler, Smaug is pretty badass in these movies. However, he was kinda taken out almost as easily as another badass villain from another film franchise. Yeah. That guy. Much like how Lord of the Rings plays out, there are 3 or maybe 4 different plots happening at the same time. One of the main plots deals with Thorn, who at this point has gold fever. It's making him paranoid and thinking that everyone's after his treasure, to the point that he thinks that one of his own is stealing from him, particularly the Arkenstone. The movie does a good job in showing how deep his sickness is, and also shows the internal conflict that he has within himself. Another plot basically revolves around the film's connection with Sauron. You know, the main antagonist in the Lord of the Rings trilogy. If there's anything that shows a bridge between this trilogy and the Lord of the Rings trilogy, it's this plot line. It's one of the items that Jackson added to the original novel, and overall it fits in nicely, and it's a good setup to the next trilogy. And of course, the other main plot follows Bilbo in his efforts in trying to find a way to put an end to this war before it even begins. In the process of trying to prevent this inevitable war, he's also trying to save Thorn from himself, and by all accounts, his soul. And when you see Bilbo, you'll notice that he has gotten braver, and a lot more confident. He's come a long way since we first met him in the unexpected journey. Now, I'm not going to lie to you, there may be 1 or 2 minor plots that seem to be forced and we could have done without. Now, for example, there's this one minor plot that deals with a quasi-love story that kind of fell short and kind of leaves you going, meh. There are some slow moments here and there, but it's mainly due to the build-up before the actual battle begins. That's That's expected with a movie such as this. However, once the action starts, it's non-stop fighting till almost at the end of the movie. I'm not going to go as far as saying that they outdid themselves with the action sequence during the battle, but they have some pretty good moments, and it kind of keeps you at the edge of your seat. Out of the three, this film is a bit darker than the other two, but in the end, you'll enjoy it nonetheless. It's a good addition to the Middle-earth films, and a great conclusion to this trilogy. I'll say this much for the film, it made me come home and pop in Fellowship of the Ring, the first movie of the Lord of the Rings trilogy. And for a movie that makes me want to just keep the story going, I'd say it did a pretty good damn job. So my final recommendation? Watch it in theaters, and then get it on video when it's released. Well, this wraps up this week's review. If it was helpful in any way, please feel free to leave a comment below. And if you haven't done so yet, click the subscribe button for more upcoming reviews. Before I sign off, I just want to wish everybody happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and Happy New Year. This is Faceless, signing off.